Hello and welcome to another episode of Straight from the Training Ground. I'm Jay here with my co-host Ryan. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm pretty good.
So in this episode, we've got a nice interview coming up here later with someone from Sogility, which we'll get into later. But basically, it is bringing technology into the game, which obviously the world that we live in, Rosmondo, is always changing, and it's changed a lot here in the past and how it affects sports. But we'll get to that later. But off camera earlier, we were talking about a pretty interesting article that has popped up here recently on social media.
Yeah, and I think the article's about Will Still or William Still, and he's a coach in the French Ligue 1, the top division in France. And a bit of a storm going on. The fact that he's able to coach in Ligue 1 or League One over there, and he's successful, but he does not have a pro coaching license. And I guess it's something like 22,000 a game or something like that. That his club are getting fined every time that he coaches, but they're just going to roll with it because he's actually winning games. They're successful. I think like 11, 12 games or something. They're unbeaten. And I just think it's an excellent story. There's a lot more we can get into about that guy himself. He's a really interesting character, and his route to get into that job is a really interesting one. But I think it just sheds light on something that we discuss quite a lot, which is, do you really need coaching licenses? Or if so, what degree of coaching licenses do you need to actually be a coach? So I think this is what this article really zeroes in on. What do you think?
Yeah, we have it up here on the screen for everyone. Thanks to this was on Twitter from Footy Accumulators, so thanks to them. But yeah, so they're getting fined £22,000 every game that he manages, but they're also 12-0 in the last games under him as manager. And on top of that, they also drew last night at PSG. So I think it's fair
Well,
to say that he's doing all right.
yeah, I mean, he's just another example in that a whole lot more goes into being a good manager than being able to pass a course. And I think conversely, I'd suggest that people that have only just passed courses really there's a lot more to get to management than that. I mean, do they have a track record? Have they played? What level did they play at? What are they like managing people? And then here's one of the intangibles: are they just good people? Are they people that try to do the right thing? And we also, we kind of know even from high school or club or even college soccer that sometimes that's not always in the toolkit of a lot of managers that we've seen, or a lot of coaches we've seen.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And real quick, why don't you go dive a little bit more into the background, explain to everyone why he first became controversial, because it's not just about this.
Well, I mean, it became controversial, I believe, with Will Still, as his name is the fact that he was inspired to get into managing and get into coaching from Football Manager, the video game, and also EA Sports, FIFA, and so that ran away with it online as like the big story. The fact of the matter was, he really is an interesting case. He's got a British parents that moved to Belgium. He had a career as a professional player himself. Grew up speaking French, and also learned then how to speak Flemish as well, being in Belgium, and spent some time in Holland too. And then it turns out he actually, after his playing career towards the end, he went over to England and started coaching at Preston North End, Youth 14 Academy team. So he's really put his work in. He's put his time in. He's gone around and just done what he thought he needed to do to coach. And there was one of the articles I saw actually online today was that the interesting thing about him is he's not a native French speaker, or he's not a native English speaker, but he coaches in an English accent and in a French accent when he's treating these players. So heck of a skill set. I mean, being able to coach in multiple languages, just one team, that's just phenomenal. And I just think it speaks to kind of the intangibles that are needed to be a successful coach. It's not always about, most of the time, it's not about the licenses. It's about your experience and who you are as a character. And I think that's something that we don't always see in the coaches that you and I run into, or we've run into in the college days as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And just to give everyone a little bit more background, in the club side of things, at least in this country, you do need a certain type of
Yeah.
licensed coach, depending on the age level. and those things are set up by U.S. Soccer. And even at the professional level, in Europe, a guy like this, you can't just stroll in and apply to coach, Barcelona or someone else, which people here I think have a difficult time understanding because if you're a great football coach, American football, you move up the ranks in college, maybe someday you get a job as an NFL coach. But in Europe and a lot of other countries, you have to have a certain license to coach at that level. It doesn't matter where you've coached or how successful you've been. And obviously, in the high school side of things in this country, you don't have to have any license at all.
Or you really don't have to have any license in college either in the U.S. to coach. That's mainly an athletic department policy overall, whether they put a license description or a license requirement in the job description.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of people are not aware of that. And then another thing I'd like to add to that I've always found interesting is uh, I'm also a teacher. And as a teacher and in a lot of professions, you have continuing education. Every few years, there's something, that you need to be re-educating yourself on or whatever. And with these coaching licenses, at least in club soccer here in the U.S., it's a finite thing. Once you get it, you're good. So if you got a C license, back in 1990, that C license is good forever, and a lot of things change. And obviously, so there's good and bad with both of them, but does that mean you're qualified to coach at a high level now, all these years later? There are good people out there who coach high school that you and I, know that are great people, great coaches, and they do a great job every day building a program, and they may not have a license at all. And on the other hand, you might have people who have this great resume on paper, but they can't handle a team very well. They bounce around to different places every year or two, but on paper, they have that license.
Well, I think I do see that, but I think one of my things that I kind of zero in on is this push to get coaches licensed in the U.S. youth club soccer scene. And it's kind of a strange dynamic that they keep pushing and pushing for. You want to have a certain license for this. But some of the characters you run into coaching club soccer, I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable with them coaching my kids. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same. I just think what is driving a lot of this in many ways is organizations, associations trying to make themselves a little bit more relevant by pushing on a license format. When at the same time, like I said, in college soccer and high school soccer, you don't even need a license. I just think so much in coaching is about the intangibles, about character of a person and their abilities to manage people, whether that's kids, adults, whatever. And I think that gets overlooked a lot of the times. Experience in the game is a huge aspect too. It's probably those are the two main pillars. But yeah, it's just like you said, you can get a license one day and it'd be there for perpetuity, right? You don't have to update it. I think they're actually trying to change that a little bit, trying to regular updates. But I guess another aspect as well is who's paying for these licenses, right? I mean, so when you're a teacher and you have to do renewal, that's the question for you. Do you have to pay for that course to get yourself renewed and accredited as a teacher?
Most school districts that I'm aware of, they have you get reimbursed. You may have to pay for it up front, but yeah, you get at least a major chunk of it reimbursed because it's necessary for your profession. Yeah.
Correct. So that's there. But in youth soccer, who's paying for that? Do clubs often pay for a coach to get a license? No. A lot of times the coach has got to go on his own. So then it narrows the kind of funnel of who is going to get these licenses. Is it, for example, a parent coach that's coaching for the good of the game, coaching for the team, for the community he lives in? No, because he's generally not going to want to pay extra money and go and do that. It's usually people that really don't have a vested interest or often it's people that don't have a vested interest in the actual kids, club, community they're coaching. They're just looking to get up the chain. So I think there's kind of needs to be a reevaluation of the whole requirement for coaching licenses, in my opinion.
And it kind of leads us to our next topic or our interview today, Ryan, is technology in the world of soccer, and obviously technology everywhere around us. But things have changed a lot since we were kids, obviously. In the old days of just banging the ball against the wall. Well, they've changed for some people, not you. But, technology, has changed things a lot. VAR, GPS systems and all the different tracking systems for players has filtered down even now to the youth ranks. I mean, I'm sure just like you have been to U11, U12 games, and kids and teams are now using all these tracing systems for data and video, and all these things. You know what I
Crazy.
mean? But, yeah, it is crazy, and we'll save that argument for another day of what age does it become important and those kind of things. But it's definitely infiltrated the game, I think is safe to say.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, it's inescapable as well. And then even from a coach's point of view, just technology and social media, all the guys in your team are constantly posting stuff up about training sessions, about this, about that. It's just on the the extracurriculars. You gotta keep an eye on it, but it's here to stay.
Well, we both do the same. As coaches, I never thought a long time ago after training, you'd have to post a picture of training session or something like that, but that's just kind of the world we live in now. So with that, we have an interview coming up. Hope you enjoy it with the founder, CEO of Sogility. So give that a listen, and until next time, straight from the training ground. And now we have Jimmy Carson, the CEO of Sogility, with us. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Apologize for my voice. Woke up with a cold today after we scheduled this. So, but Jimmy, you are the founder or part founder and CEO of Sogility. Got my sticker right there. Why don't you tell everybody real quickly about Sogility, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, so Sogility, the premise is really a technology-driven soccer training facility. So we've scoured the planet for the very best in technology that would aid in the development of soccer players specifically. We do train other athletes and athlete development and some other areas. Sogility has 6 facets of training. So we'll train kids in the technical soccer zone on some of the ESA equipment. We'll have a circuit training. We do tech touch with ball launchers and working on their first touch. Member skills classes, neuroscience training with reflection. We also do athlete development. And then we've added a recovery element. We've just partnered with the recovery room here locally. So now we're offering Normatex and Theraguns and stuff like that so that players can have the benefits of rehabbing and getting back, to match fitness if they've had a long weekend. So.
Tell us a little bit about your background, and off camera, we were talking about you have a little bit of a background in education as well as soccer.
Yeah. I started off as a special needs teacher, working with kids primarily with emotional disabilities. And so I did that for the first part of my career on the elementary level. Quickly kind of got into the administrative world, wanted to continue to have a larger reach and to work with more kids. So became an assistant principal for a little while. And then became a principal at the end there. So I spent the last 10 years running schools, which was just a whole different way of educating and building, relationships with kids. And so that kind of goes hand in hand with the soccer world. So I've been coaching for the last 24 years. I've coached every level from recreational all the way up to, semi-professional with W League team, or excuse me, the WPSL team. And so I've coached high school soccer, both on the boys, girls side. ODP was most recently in the MLS Academy and the development academy before that. And then also worked in the girls ECNL. So kind of run the full gamut of coaching that we can possibly do here in the States, and have loved every minute of it. But decided this last year I was going to fully focus on Sogility and the growth of our business. So I'm not coaching for the first time in 24 years, which is a little funky. But I get to run sessions for kids and still train professionals and do things in my downtime. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and you're still around the game, obviously, a lot. So
yeah, I don't know that we ever get out of the game, right?
Yeah.
So I still play in the local leagues and play with the pros and pick up games and do all those fun things that I can still manage to get up and move the next day. Coaching, it's a love, it's a passion, so it never really goes away.
So take us back to what inspired or motivated you to start the whole Sogility movement?
Yeah, I always wanted to own and operate a training facility and try to give back to the game. My grandfather came to this country in 1967, helped start the first leagues in Indiana way back when. So 55 years later, I'm still trying to do whatever I can to try to make a difference in the game. Now it's
Sure.
more on the technical and physical development. So again, kind of like in education, you go from having a classroom of kids or a roster of students that you work with, and I was able to go to a platform now where, I have 300 members and lots of, about 5,000 kids and families have rolled through the facility over the last 4 years. So training them in classes or they become members and train in our facility. But just trying to make a difference and give back to the game and see the love and passion grow. Sogility is trying to become a community, a soccer community for players and their families. I think that's a little bit of what we miss in our country and our culture. We don't always have that place to call home and to play. So we have 5-a-side leagues. We have adults and youth that play in those. We train kids, like I said, on memberships and have an opportunity to work with them. And so we're training all the way down to 2-year-olds, all the way up to the professionals. So just the full gamut.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. Obviously, you're involved with a lot of different age groups, a lot of different things going on when you're in charge of, something like Sogility. What would you say is the thing that you most enjoy about it right now?
I just love to see people, growing in the game and getting that confidence. So we have players come in here and they're going to work out for a half hour to an hour on the equipment. They're going to get somewhere between 300 and 500 touches, and fast somewhere 2-3 weeks down the road, we hear from their parents and they're like, hey, my kid, is playing way better. Other parents are asking what they're doing. So I just love to see their confidence grow and then become more comfortable on the ball and start to take some risks. That's probably been the blessing of adding the 5-a-side pitch as well, was the ability to see the kids actually play. So are they using the skills that we're teaching them, or do they resort back to just banging the ball up the field?
Right.
But to see them grow and mature. And again, we've got kids that have been training here for 4 years now. So I've seen them go from second, third team players all the way to accepting scholarships to play Division I soccer. So to see the growth of individual players over time is probably the most rewarding.
That's really what it's all about. Like you said, as a coach or however you're involved in the game, that's really what it's all about. What would you say are some challenges?
Time is the biggest challenge that we face. Kids are busy and they don't always have maybe the time to train. So we try to be as available as we can. We're open pretty much 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to provide them whatever opportunity they have to develop and to train and to play. I spend a lot of early mornings that you might be able to hear balls banging in the background. I've got a couple of getting the touches in before they head into preseason. So just really finding the time for people to be able to be here is probably the biggest challenge that we face when running the business. But beyond that, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of obstacles because, like I said, we offer 6 different facets of training. 34 kids can book every half hour. So availability and the ability to get in here is wide open. But it's their personal time. So really, kids are multi-sport athletes. They might have multiple siblings and, still have school and work and all those other things that kind of get in our way of all the fun that we want to have.
And along those lines, so how does someone in your area, do they have to be affiliated with a team or a club? Is it just purely individual? Is it both?
We've been able to partner with the Indiana Soccer Association. We partner with Indy 11. We partner with about 6 other clubs here locally. So we're trying to give back to those clubs and be here as a resource for everyone. The thing that I want more and more people to understand is we're an asset. As a coach, I've spent many a times wishing I had more time to spend with individual players on technical skills and to spend more time with them. And we know if any player is going to get better, it's not what they do in their 2, 3, 4 days a week of training. It's what they're doing outside of training. And so if they're putting in the time and effort to get better, they'll find success. So for me, that's, again, a big part of this whole puzzle is, can we provide a resource for coaches too? So, you have to run your training sessions and base what you've got to do for your competition that maybe comes on the weekend, and you get to spend 10, 15 minutes a training session on some technical work, probably in a technical element, but you just don't have the time to stop, training and work with an individual athlete when you've got 18 other kids running around the pitch. So For us, we want to be a tool for those coaches, for those clubs. Send your players this way, we'll train them up, and we'll hopefully send them back better.
That's great. I'm pretty familiar. I was familiar with Sogility before I met you. And when I think of Sogility, I'm glad you mentioned earlier about the 6 different facets that you offer, because to me,
Yeah.
I just kind of was aware of the ring, with the lights that light up and the fast-paced technical work.
Yeah.
And to me, it goes back to, I think what you've done is you've taken, like, when I grew up, probably when you grew up, you just went out and kicked the ball against the wall, to get a lot of touches by yourself, and you develop that love for the game. And it's a little bit more of it's a 2023, kind of spin on those things, with more technology, more data-based, obviously, for kids these days.
Yeah, we're excited about the data side and where we're headed. We're actually in app development to develop. We have an assessment here that we run, so we want to be able to have instant data for the kids. So we're developing an app in which they can kind of track their progress and growth over time. It's kind of like a FIFA rating system.
Yeah.
We know that those kinds of things motivate the players, inform the parents, but a little bit of competition between them too. I mean, you get a handful of kids in there on the icon rings, and one guy's got a better score than the others.
Yeah.
You start to see them really get after it. So we think the data side is only going to get better. For me, like you just said, go in a backyard with a bag of balls. I mean, I was lucky my old man played, so I had a coach there in the yard, and we would grab every kid in the neighborhood and we'd play. And in this day and age, that's not going to happen. I mean, the kids aren't as able to just go to the park and play and do things like we used to. So to provide a safe place and an environment for those kids is phenomenal. And I tell parents all the time, there's nothing I'm going to do with your kid that they couldn't do with a bag of balls in the backyard. If you want a window to get broken and you want to have a damaged fence post or something, they'll go out there and do that, or you can send them here and I'll save you some wear and tear. But it's the engagement piece. So to your point, kids aren't going to just go in the backyard and play and train and do things the old method. But I mean, if I put a robot in front of you that shoots soccer balls at you, you're in. I'm not way cooler. Or we're going to come in here and we're going to work out on equipment that has instant reaction and timing, and it's really developing more in the brain than the players understand. They like the challenge. They like that it's instant scores and things like that. It's kind of a gamification of it, but they don't really understand that in the moment I'm programming you to think a step ahead or to make a better pass and a better decision. And we're still working on way to pass and accuracy and all the little technical things that you need to work on. They're just coming because it's fun and it's engaging. And so we slowly kind of trick them. Back in my education days, I can lay a math worksheet in front of you and tell you to solve some problems, or I can pull out a computer and turn a game and have you working on your math facts in some sort of game way, and you're sold. So, it's really that we're trying to help keep the engagement levels very high. And then the 6 facets make it so it's not stale. So I know kids that have trained other places or with other people, and it becomes kind of repetitive. It's the same old type thing. So having 6 different ways to train and, 10, 15 different trainers at our disposal. So you're getting different opinions, different people working with you, different feedback, just really keeps it interesting.
Last but not least, Jimmy, what, in a perfect world, 5 years from now, where would you love to see Sogility?
Yeah, we're in the process right now of working on expansion into new markets. So, we always joke we're looking for a Jimmy in your area that has a love and passion for the game. And obviously, we hope to have 5 to 10 more facilities throughout the country here in the next year and a half, 2 years. And then going into the World Cup kind of, on our home soil, and then the passion that comes with something like that, we feel like we can have easily 30 facilities around the country. So again, we're working with specific areas right now and hopes to open up a few more. And we actually just announced a global partnership with a company in Korea that has taken to what we've been doing here. And they're like, wow, we want to do something like that in Korea. So how do we get 5, 10 facilities across Korea and get kids training and just kind of, again, grow in the game. So it's pretty exciting times here at Sogility.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Well, again, Jimmy, thank you so much for taking your time to join us. Again, I apologize for my voice today.
Oh, you sound great, man. It's a little raspy, but I think it only adds to it. Makes you sound.
add some character. But no, really appreciate it. Taking the time to tell us a little bit about Sogility. Really think what you're doing is great for kids. To get them out and to get them out of their house and working on those technical skills.
Mhm.
And really appreciate everything that you're doing in your community to help kids within the game of soccer.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just the love of the game. So just like you put on this podcast and educate people,
I don't know about that, but
I'm on the training center trying to do the same thing. Get the good word of soccer out there. Get kids excited about training and playing, and just keep growing this game in our country.
Well, absolutely. Again, we appreciate it. If you're not familiar with Sogility, check them out. Look them up online. They have a lot of great things. And as he said, hopefully they're going to be coming to a community closer to you here in the near future. So again, Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Visit our partners at TractionSocks.com for performance grip socks created for all athletes. Visit our new partners, UnoZero at UnoZero.com, where classic beauty and quality meet modern design and elegance for football boots and more.